The great council hall floated above a shining blue star. It was one of the oldest gathering places in the galaxy, where leaders of powerful civilizations met to decide the fate of entire worlds. On this day, the hall was filled with voices, laughter, and the low hum of alien translators. Representatives of dozens of species had come together to discuss rising threats, trade agreements, and the balance of power. But the name spoken most often was not about a great empire. It was not about a warrior race or an ancient civilization. It was about Earth, a small, green planet sitting quietly at the edge of the galaxy. The mention of Earth did not bring fear. It brought laughter. A tall, scaled alien from the Thrax Dominion leaned back in his chair, his long fangs flashing as he chuckled. "Humans," he said, his translator echoing his amusement in every tone. "A primitive species who still argue over who should lead their tiny nations. They cannot even unite their own world, and yet they dream of joining us among the stars." The council chamber rippled with laughter. A feathered diplomat from the Avrian clans added, "They send out fragile ships, slow and clumsy. I have seen them with my own eyes. Their weapons? Ancient relics. Their fleets, barely fit to patrol a single system. Truly, Earth is nothing but a backwater planet." The laughter grew louder. Some slammed their hands or claws on the tables, shaking their heads in disbelief that anyone would take Earth seriously. But in the corner of the great hall, a few alien observers did not laugh. They whispered among themselves, voices low and uneasy. "They advanced too quickly," one murmured. "In less than a century, they leapt from flying machines to starships. They are reckless, unpredictable." No one at the table paid attention to these warnings. The galaxy had seen countless new species rise and fall. To the council, humanity was just another child race, making noise in the void before fading into history. The mockery continued. A representative from the Serix Empire leaned forward, his metallic face glinting in the light. "I heard they call themselves humans. Such a simple name for such a simple species. They have no great history among the stars. No ancient empire, no legendary warriors. What can they possibly offer us?" Again, the chamber shook with laughter. But then, silence fell. From the far end of the hall, the voice of the moderator, an ancient being whose species had seen the rise and fall of countless empires, cut through the noise. "Do not underestimate them," the moderator said slowly. "Yes, they are young. Yes, they are untested. But I have read their history. I have studied their wars. And if there is one truth about humans, it is this: they do not surrender. Even when the odds are impossible, they fight. Even when they are broken, they rise again." The chamber grew quiet. Some shifted uncomfortably. Others looked confused. And the laughter returned, louder than before. "Stories, old stories," shouted a reptilian warlord. "Every species has tales of courage, but stories do not win wars. Technology, numbers, strength, these are what matter. Humans have none of these." The moderator said nothing more. He only looked down at the records in his hands, eyes filled with something the others could not recognize, something between fear and respect. Meanwhile, far from the shining council hall, on the small blue planet called Earth, humans prepared. For the future. In hidden bases deep underground, engineers tested new engines that bent the rules of speed. Scientists worked day and night on weapons that could pierce the strongest shields. Soldiers trained not only with machines, but with each other, building trust, loyalty, and a spirit no machine could measure. The galaxy laughed at them, but humanity did not hear the laughter. They were too busy building. In the council hall, the discussion moved on. Trade routes, border disputes, ancient rivalries, topics that had mattered for thousands of years. Earth was forgotten again, dismissed as too small, too weak, too unimportant. But not everyone dismissed them. In the shadows of the chamber, an Avrian scout leaned close to his commander. "I have seen their eyes," a scout whispered. "I visited their world. I watched their soldiers march. I heard their leaders speak. They may seem weak, but they burn with something I cannot explain." The commander waved a claw dismissively. "A spark, nothing more. Soon it will fade." The scout shook his head. "No, not a spark, a fire." At that moment, somewhere across the galaxy, a human fleet prepared to launch into the stars. The ships were small compared to alien warships, their armor thinner, their engines slower. But inside those ships were men and women who carried something no council could measure. Determination. As the fleet engines roared to life, humanity stepped into the galaxy, not as a joke, not as a backwater world, but as a force the stars had never seen before. Back in the council hall, the laughter still echoed. Aliens laughed at Earth, blind to the truth that would soon shake their entire galaxy. Because soon, very soon, they would learn what humans could do. The stars above Earth glittered like cold, distant fires. For centuries, humans had looked up at them with wonder, with dreams, with questions. Now, those dreams were turning into reality. The first fleet of Earth was ready. It was not grand compared to the mighty fleets of alien empires. The ships were smaller, their armor thinner, their weapons fewer. To alien eyes, they looked fragile machines, barely fit to survive the void. But to humanity, these ships were more than steel and fire. They were symbols of hope. The eternal dawn. Earth's flagship hovered above the planet, her engines glowing with the light of humanity's ambition. Inside, men and women in dark uniforms prepared for a journey no human fleet had ever taken before. Their faces carried a mix of fear and excitement. Captain Elias Varro, a man with stern eyes and a calm voice, stood on the bridge. He was not the most famous man on Earth. He was not even the strongest, but he carried with him something his crew trusted more than anything: unshakable confidence. "We will show them," he said quietly, looking out at the stars. "We will show them who we are." The fleet's mission was simple: reach the nearest trade lanes, announce Earth's presence, and prove that humanity was ready to step into the galaxy. But nothing in space was ever simple. When the fleet jumped into deep space, they entered regions patrolled by alien ships. Messages were sent out across the stars. The humans have left their planet. The backwater race is reaching into the galaxy. The laughter returned. Across the galactic networks, alien commentators mocked the human fleet. Some even broadcast images of Earth's ships, comparing them to children's toys. "They will break down before they reach their destination," one alien general scoffed. "Or they will run home crying the moment they meet the true fleet." Another sneered. But fate had other plans. Not long after entering the trade lanes, the human fleet received a distress call. A convoy of neutral ships was under attack by pirates' ruthless raiders, known for leaving nothing alive. The aliens in the convoy had already sent desperate signals, but no one had responded. The great empires ignored such calls unless there was profit to be gained. Captain Varro stood silent as the distress call echoed through the bridge. The crew waited. Everyone knew the mission was only to announce Earth's presence, nothing more. But the call repeated, "We are under attack. Please, anyone help us." Varro finally spoke. "Set course for the convoy." His officers exchanged worried looks. "Sir, our orders." "Our orders," Varro interrupted, his voice calm but firm, "are to represent Earth. And this is who we are. We help those who cannot help themselves." Plot the course. The fleet changed direction. Engines roared. Humanity's first fleet was about to face its first true test. When they arrived, the sight was grim. Pirate warships, circled the helpless convoy, tearing it apart piece by piece. Alien civilians screamed over coms, begging for mercy. The pirates laughed. Then, out of the void, the human fleet appeared. The pirates turned their guns toward the newcomers. They expected easy prey, small ships, weak weapons. A backwater species daring to play at war. But the humans did not run. They charged. The Eternal Dawn fired first. Her cannons blazed, striking one pirate vessel with deadly accuracy. Other human ships followed, weaving between enemy fire with bold maneuvers. The pirates were shocked. No species had ever attacked them with such fury, especially not a fleet so small. On the bridge of the pirate flagship, the commander snarled, "They are insane. No one fights like this." He was right. Humanity fought differently. They had no ancient shields or superior weapons. But they had something the pirates had never seen before: unity. Human ships worked together with perfect coordination. One ship drew fire, another struck the weak points. Crews shouted encouragement, pushing their ships beyond safe limits. They fought not as individuals, but as one. The battle was brutal, but when the dust cleared, the pirate fleet was broken. Fires raged across their wreckage, and the survivors fled into the void. The convoy was saved. On the alien ships, silence fell. The civilians, who had expected to die, stared in disbelief at the human fleet. For the first time, they saw Earth not as a weak world, but as a protector. Who are you?" One alien captain asked over the comms. His voice shaking. Captain Varro stood tall on his bridge. His words were simple, but they carried the weight of an entire species. "We are from Earth. Remember that." The message spread faster than light. Reports of the battle reached the great council halls and the alien networks. The galaxy could no longer laugh so easily. The humans, dismissed as weak, had done what many stronger fleets had refused to do. They had stood against pirates, fought with courage, and saved lives not their own. Some aliens were impressed. Others were unsettled. But one truth began to spread across the stars. The humans are not what we thought they were. Back on the Eternal Dawn, the crew celebrated quietly. For them, it was not about glory. It was about proving to themselves and to the galaxy that Earth belonged among the stars. Captain Varro looked once more at the endless night beyond his window. His voice was low, but everyone who heard it felt the fire in his words. This is only the beginning, and he was right. The galaxy had only seen the first step of humanity's journey. The true test was still to come. The story of Earth's first victory against the pirates spread like wildfire across the stars. For the first time, the named human was spoken with curiosity rather than laughter. But in the vast galaxy, one small victory was not enough. A storm was coming. The Dravari Empire, an ancient and powerful species, had begun a ruthless campaign of conquest. World after world fell under their crushing fleets. They were feared for their numbers, their brutal tactics, and their belief that only the strongest deserved to rule the galaxy. The Great Council called for unity, but few dared to fight the Dravari openly. Even mighty civilizations avoided direct war, preferring to protect their own borders. To the weaker species, it was hopeless. Resistance seemed like suicide. When Earth received word of the Dravari invasion, the Council's message was clear: stay out of this. You are too young, too weak. This is not your fight. In the council chambers, representatives smirked. Some even mocked. Perhaps the humans can entertain the Dravari with their courage stories, one joked. They are reckless. If they join, they will be the first to die, another said. But on Earth, leaders gathered in silence. They listened to the reports of burned worlds, slaughtered civilians, and enslaved colonies. They heard the desperate calls for help from weaker species abandoned by the Council, and they remembered. Humanity's own history was filled with war, with tragedy, with nations rising and falling. But it was also filled with survival, with sacrifice, with ordinary people who fought for each other when no one else would. On the bridge of the eternal dawn, Captain Elias Varro faced his crew. "The galaxy tells us this is not our fight," he said, his voice low but steady. "But when innocent lives are destroyed, when tyrants crush the weak, then it becomes everyone's fight." "And it becomes our fight," the fleet agreed. Orders were given. Engines roared. Humanity would not stand aside. The first true test came in the Arcanus system, where a Dravari fleet had cornered a coalition of smaller races. Their ships were outnumbered 3-1, and their defenses were failing. Panic spread across the coalition lines. Just as the last shields began to fall, the humans arrived. The Eternal Dawn emerged from hyperspace, followed by Earth's fleet. To the Dravari, it was laughable tiny ships against a war machine that had crushed empires. The Dravari commanders sneered. Another weakling species come to die. But the humans did not retreat. They advanced out. The battle began with fire and fury. Dravari cannons lit the void, tearing into coalition ships. Human vessels darted between the larger ships, drawing fire, striking weak points, weaving in and out. With daring maneuvers, the coalition forces watched in shock. Humans fought with a madness that looked like chaos, but was something greater strategy born from centuries of war. Where one ship faltered, another moved to protect it. Where one line broke, humans filled the gap without hesitation. "Hold together," Captain Varro commanded. "Trust each other. Trust the plan." The Dravari soon realized this was no ordinary enemy. Their fleets were used to fear, to opponents running or surrendering. But humans charged. A Dravari officer shouted. In disbelief, "They are outnumbered. Why don't they retreat?" The commander snarled. "Because they are fools." But the fools kept winning ground. During the battle, a Dravari dreadnought targeted the coalition flagship. Its cannons charged, ready to wipe out the last hope of the smaller races. Before it could fire, 3 human ships broke formation and hurled themselves at the dreadnought. Shields cracked, hulls burned, but they pressed forward. One ship rammed straight into the enemy's cannon, exploding in a blaze of light that shattered the weapon. The coalition fleet cheered. The Dravari dreadnought staggered, crippled. Humanity had sacrificed without hesitation to save allies they had only just met. And something strange began to happen. Inspired by the humans, the coalition ships rallied. Where fear had once gripped them, now courage burned. They fought harder, stood firmer, and began pushing back the Dravari line. For the first time in years, the Dravari retreated. After the battle, the galaxy was stunned. Reports spread of Earth's fleet fighting side by side with the weak, of human bravery turning defeat into victory. Alien leaders whispered in disbelief. The humans stood against the Dravari. They did not run. They did not surrender. They fight like no other race we have seen. Some called them reckless. Some called them mad. But others began to call them something else. Heroes. On the coalition flagship, an alien commander approached Captain Varro. His eyes were wide. With respect, "Why did you come?" He asked. "You had no reason. You owe us nothing. Why risk your lives?" Varro's answer was simple. "Because if we let tyranny grow, one day it will come for us. Because if no one stands for the weak, then the galaxy is already lost." The alien commander lowered his head. "Then today, humanity has saved us all." Back on Earth, the news of victory spread like wildfire. People cheered in the streets. Children looked to the stars, not with fear, but with pride. Humanity had proven itself not only to the galaxy, but to itself. But far away, in the dark halls of the Dravari Empire, the mood was different. The commanders who once laughed at humans now clenched their claws in anger. Reports of human tactics, human bravery, and human defiance filled their war councils. "They are not weak," one Dravari general growled. "They are dangerous." And so, humanity passed its first true test of fire. They had faced the galaxy's greatest terror and had not only survived, but won. But war was far from over. This was only the beginning. The Dravari had been wounded, but not defeated. And now they had marked humanity as their next target. The fire had been lit. And soon, the galaxy would burn. Asterisk, the Dravari Empire did not forgive defeat. After the Battle of Arcanus, the galaxy waited for their revenge. Worlds that had cheered humanity's courage now trembled, wondering if Earth would be crushed before it had even risen. Many whispered that the humans had been lucky, nothing more, that their reckless courage would not save them twice. But the Dravari did not laugh anymore. In secret chambers, their warlords studied every detail of the battle. They analyzed human maneuvers, their willingness to sacrifice, their strange unity. What they saw disturbed them. Humanity fought like no other species they had ever faced. Still, the Dravari believed in numbers. They believed in overwhelming force. And so, they gathered a massive armada that dwarfed anything Earth could build. They would strike hard, erase humanity from the stars, and make the galaxy fear them once again. The warning came too late. A scout ship brought desperate news to the eternal dawn. The Dravari are coming. Hundreds of warships, enough to burn entire systems. On Earth, panic spread. Citizens remembered the history lessons of empires that had fallen to stronger foes. Some feared that humanity's rise would end before it truly began. But in hidden places, Earth had been preparing. For decades, scientists and engineers had worked in silence. They knew humanity could never match the galaxy's ancient empires in size. So they focused on something else: speed, intelligence, and adaptability. Deep beneath the oceans and mountains of Earth, projects the galaxy had never seen before were ready to be unleashed. Experimental engines, adaptive weapons, starships, built not for size, but for precision and power. When the Dravari Armada entered human space, they expected a quick victory. Instead, they were met by something that shocked the entire galaxy. Humanity unveiled its second fleet. The new ships were sleek, fast, and armed with weapons that glowed with blue fire. They moved in ways alien commanders had never witnessed darting, vanishing, striking from angles thought impossible. The Dravari warlord sneered at first. "New paint does not make them stronger," he growled. Then the first human salvo tore through his vanguard. The Eternal Dawn, now upgraded with the new technologies, led the charge. Her cannons fired streams of light that bent through enemy shields, striking with deadly accuracy. Human fighters swarmed the Dravari ships, moving in coordinated packs like predators hunting prey. The Dravari roared in frustration. Their massive cannons fired back, but the humans did not stand still like the enemies they were used to crushing. They danced. Ships twisted, dove, and vanished into shadows. Reappearing behind the enemy. It was not just technology. It was the human spirit. Every maneuver was filled with daring. Every strike carried the weight of survival. Across the galaxy, alien eyes watched in disbelief. For centuries, Earth had been called a backwater, ignored and dismissed. But now, lead feeds of the battle spread through the networks, showing humanity fighting with a strength that rivaled empires thousands of years older. A council member whispered as he watched the screens, "They are not backwater, they are a storm." The Dravari Armada was vast, but humanity's will was unbreakable. At one point, a Dravari dreadnought unleashed a wave of fire powerful enough to destroy an entire squadron. Instead of retreating, human ships charged into the storm. One squadron of frigates pushed their engines beyond safe limits, burning themselves apart just to shield the flagship from the blast. Their sacrifice saved the fleet, and in that moment, the galaxy saw what made humanity truly dangerous. Not just technology, not just courage, but the willingness to give everything for each other. The battle raged for hours. Dravari ships fell, one after another, their commanders enraged and confused. How could such a young race fight with such fury? How could their new technology counter ancient weapons? At last, the human fleet broke through the center of the Dravari line. The Eternal. Dawn drove forward, cannons blazing. Her crew fought with exhaustion in their eyes, but fire in their hearts. The Dravari warlord realized too late that the humans were not prey, they were hunters. His armada, once thought invincible, began to crumble. When the battle ended, silence filled the void. The Dravari retreated. The humans stood victorious, but the greater victory was not on the battlefield. It was in the hearts of the galaxy. For the first time, Earth was no longer seen as a backwater. They were not dismissed as reckless children. They had fought one of the strongest empires and won. All across the stars, whispers grew louder. Humans have arrived. They fight like no other. They are dangerous, and they inspire. On the bridge of the Eternal Dawn, Captain Varro stood among his tired crew. The weight of victory pressed heavy on them. But so did the knowledge of what came next. This is not the end, Varro said softly. This is only the beginning. The galaxy has seen our strength, and now they will never forget us. His words spread beyond the bridge, beyond the fleet, beyond Earth itself. They echoed through every species that had once mocked humanity. And somewhere, deep in the shadows, other empires began to take notice. The galaxy had underestimated humans. That mistake would never happen again. The Dravari retreat was not the end. It was only the beginning. The galaxy, once filled with laughter, at Earth's expense, now spoke of humans in hushed tones. For some, it was awe. For others, it was fear. But one truth was spreading like fire across the stars. Humanity was no longer a joke. The Dravari could not accept this. Their pride had been wounded, their power questioned. In their darkest chambers, their warlords gathered. They swore that humanity would not survive another season. And so they returned. This time, they came with their full strength, not a fleet, not an armada, an invasion. Entire battle groups from across the Dravari Empire marched toward Earth's space. The sky darkened with their warships, blotting out the stars. When the reports reached the Great Council, chaos spread. Some demanded intervention, others demanded silence. Many hoped Earth would fall, fearing that if humans won again, their influence would rise too fast, too far. But humanity did not wait for help. They knew none would come. On Earth, every city, every factory, every colony prepared. Soldiers stood ready, not just on their homeworld, but on the frontier stations and newly allied outposts. Humanity had inspired smaller races, and now those races rallied to their side. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's forgotten and oppressed found hope. And that hope had a name: Earth. The battle began at the edge of Sol, near the silent rocks of the asteroid belt. The Dravari ships poured in like a flood, their weapons glowing red, their commanders certain of victory. Against them stood humanity's fleets, smaller, fewer, but burning with determination. At the center, the Eternal Dawn waited. Her hull bore the scars of past battles, but her spirit had never been stronger. On her bridge, Captain Elias Varro looked at his crew. Many were tired, many were afraid, but none were ready to surrender. Today, Varro said, his voice steady as steel, they will learn. The galaxy will learn. We are not weak. We are not prey. We are human. and we will fight until the stars themselves burn out." The order was given. The fleets clashed. The void erupted in fire. Dravari warships hammered the human lines, but the humans moved like shadows, slipping between barrages, striking at weak points. Every loss they took was answered with fury. Every fallen ship became fuel for the resolve of those who remained. Coalition allies joined the fight. Small ships from minor races who had once been too afraid to face the Dravari. Now, inspired by humans, they fought with courage they never knew they had. Still, the Dravari pushed forward. Their numbers were overwhelming, their cannons endless. Slowly, painfully, humanity was pushed back. On the eternal dawn, alarms blared, hull breaches, casualties, systems failing. Varro gripped the command chair as sparks fell around him. "Hold the line," he shouted. "Do not break." His crew obeyed, even as the ship shuddered under enemy fire. Then came the moment that changed everything. The Dravari flagship, a colossal dreadnought that dwarfed every ship in the battle, charged its main cannon. Its blast would tear through the human fleet, ending the fight in a single shot. The galaxy held its breath. But before the weapon could fire, a group of human ships broke formation. They were old vessels, battered from previous wars. Their captains knew they could not survive, yet they charged anyway. The galaxy watched as those ships rammed themselves into the dreadnought's cannon, exploding in brilliant flashes of light. The weapon was destroyed. The path to victory reopened. It was madness. It was sacrifice. It was humanity. The battle turned. The eternal dawn, rallying every surviving ship, led a final charge. Human fleets struck like lightning, their new weapons cutting through Dravari armor. Coalition allies roared in unison, fighting harder than ever before. The Dravari, once feared as unstoppable, began to falter. Their lines broke. Their commanders panicked. For the first time in living memory, the Dravari Empire retreated in disgrace. When the last enemy ship vanished into the void, silence fell across the battlefield. Ships drifted among the wreckage. Fires burned in the black, and thousands of lives had been lost. But humanity had not fallen. Humanity had stood. The news spread faster than light. Across the galaxy, from the richest worlds to the forgotten colonies, the story was told again and again. The humans had faced the Dravari, empire at full strength, and one. In the great council hall, the same chamber that once shook with laughter, silence ruled. Representatives who had mocked Earth now stared at the records of the battle with disbelief. The moderator, the ancient being who had once warned them, finally spoke. "I told you not to underestimate them. And now you all see the truth. Humanity has arrived, and the galaxy will never be the same." Back on Earth, the people mourned their dead, but stood with pride. They had bled, they had burned, but they had survived. Children looked at the night sky, not with fear, but with wonder. The stars no longer belonged to others. They belonged to humanity too. On the bridge of the eternal dawn, Captain Varro gazed at the battlefield, at the silent wreckage of ships that had once threatened his world. "They laughed at us," he whispered, "but now they will remember." And so the galaxy learned. They learned that Earth was not a backwater. They learned that humans were not weak. They learned that when humanity fights, they fight not only for themselves, but for all who cannot. From that day forward, the galaxy no longer mocked when it spoke of Earth. It spoke with respect, with caution, with fear. Because humanity had carved its name into the stars, and the galaxy would never forget what humans could do.